What do you do if you've got a child who wakes up in the middle of the night and wants, I had a milk monster, so, wants something.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? Do you leave them? Do you...
So I think it's important to sort of establish what's happening there. Why is your child waking up? It's also relevant how old the child is. So a baby who is waking up for feeds and who still is feeding at night, then obviously that's a different situation, where if you have an older baby or a child who no longer needs feeds at night, or else just wants to see a parent, or whatever reason it is, it's first of all looking at what the cause of that wake up is. Are they looking for reassurance? Is it a habit? And addressing that. The key point of trying to address any kind of sleep issue during the night is being consistent with the process. So whatever process a parent is deciding to do, whether it be that they're going to go in, reassure their child and then leave, or whether they're going to sit by them until they go to sleep, whatever process they decide to go with. And it is very much a personal thing. We all parent in very different ways, and children have different personalities. So what suits one child doesn't necessarily suit another or another family. But whatever process a parent is going to choose to do with their child when they wake during the night, the consistency is really important. However, if you have a situation like yourself where you have a milk monster and you know that your child no longer needs the milk, and it is just about habit and it has become an association for your child for sleep, they know that when they get into that light stage of sleep and they pull themselves into a wakefulness, full wakefulness, then they know that milk is forthcoming, and that's what they need, they assume they need in order to get back to sleep. It is about breaking that habit. So whether it's cold turkey and you decide that there is no more milk at night, and you use reassurance techniques to get them to go back to sleep, or whether you do it gradually. So some people prefer to do it gradually, where they start reducing down the amount of milk that they give at any given wake up until they get to very little, and then take it away at that point. But the key, which with whatever process a parent is choosing to do, is being consistent rather than confusing the issue, which exacerbates a lot of sleep issues in children, is that a child doesn't really know what to expect, and sometimes they're allowed to have it and sometimes they're not allowed to have it. That's a very confusing situation for children.
It's funny you say about consistency, because my husband, I'd go in the bottle and I'd be like, and he's like, no, it's a transaction. Get in, hand over the milk, get out. Don't wake, don't
He's got a little headset on, FBI jacket.
Don't. And actually, he was absolutely right. But, you're right, both parents, because you don't really know what your other half is doing in the middle of the night if they're up. And, I was just like being ridiculous. But, it took me a long time to crack the habit. But it was the whole milk situation brought it down. Then in the end, something happened and for some reason, I think we both were asleep for 2 nights, and she didn't wake, and it sort of petered out. Yeah, that was that, really. Yeah. But tough times. All ahead of you, Dave. All ahead of you.
Thank you.
What are the biggest problems that you that you would see along the way in terms of?
I hate to say this in front of Dave.
No, please. I'm here to be educated as well as be part of this. But it's great. I want to hear it. Hit me with the facts.
Bring it on. So I think one of the main problems is if there is a sleep regression. So a baby who is sleeping well, and for whatever reason there is some kind of regression, whether it's teething very badly or unwell, and there is also a regression, and I hesitate to say it, but there is such a thing as a 4-month sleep regression. Some babies go through it, and many babies don't. Tomorrow. I know. But some babies don't. Lots of babies don't.
What you're suggesting is I go back to what I used to do, which is stay out until late and then come home. Just hope it's all sorted out when I'm writing this down. Okay.
I'm not condoning any of that.
No, okay, that's good. That's good to know. Okay,
but it can. So there are regressions along the way. It may be caused there's developmental jumps along the way, which can cause regressions to sleep as well. And I think some of the problems can happen when a sleep regression is underway, and then a parent sort of falls into a situation where they're fueling it. So they get to a situation where they start rocking their baby back to sleep each time they wake up during the night, and that becomes the next habit. Or they give milk each time the baby wakes, and that becomes the habit. So whatever it is that a parent falls back on during these times of regression, that can then set the scene for ongoing sleep issues. So that's where we want to be careful if there are regressions to sleep, is that you don't do something to fuel it as an ongoing issue. That's one thing. Also, there are always, certainly with older children, toddlers and older children, where they may be scared. They might say they're scared of the dark, or there's something that they've seen on TV or heard at nursery or out and about that triggers with them, and it's scary, and that affects sleep as well. So it's also about addressing that. You do need to address your child's fears and rather than ignore it, but there's got to be a certain boundary where what you don't want to do is, when a child is saying that there's a monster in the room, start looking around the room for the monster.
That's
almost acknowledging the fact that there is one.
What I'm taking from this is it's not about fatherhood, but I've been a terrible uncle to Alice and
what
Penny.
have you done to them?
There's monsters everywhere. We're playing, we're running away from them. Yeah, I should stop doing that.
Yeah,
my sister will be thankful. Okay, good to know.
But things like monsters, for instance, if you acknowledge that there may be by looking under the bed or opening the cupboard, then that's an acknowledgement of the fact that, well, yeah, I'm just going to check that they're not here. So when your child is lying in bed in the dark, looking around the room, thinking, I wonder if they've arrived. So you honestly want to...
This looks like this is news to you.
But she's doing fine now, isn't she?
We brought the dog upstairs to sniff the monster out.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. But she realises this.
Oh, no, I mean, that was ages
ago.
She's
She's
all
good
good
now.
now.
She's good now. She's good now.
Yeah.
But things like that, which we wouldn't realise, you don't assume, you just think, well, I'm just sort of reassuring my child that the monster is not here. But that's for the here and now. So you just want to be careful that it doesn't become a thing where there's sort of an acknowledgement of that. Something that does work well, just by the by, saying as we're on the subject, is having a bottle with water with a few drops of lavender, which is very soothing for sleep, and spraying the room to make it feel like
monster.
So it's just a safe haven. Try not to say
Do you know
will wait outside the door. The monster's waiting outside the door and won't come across the door once we've had the spray.
Okay.
And then you're waking up 15 times a night
You're
to
there
spray.
with a super soaker full of lavender water.
Oh, wow.
So it's things like that we don't assume would cause an issue, but can.